I know what draws a crowd. You have cake? Yeah, it draws a crowd. I'm just saying. I mean, come on. That's why he was upset. He was like, come on, I don't get any cake? Oh, it is good to see you all. It's always a pleasure to be here. Always a pleasure to be in this place with you all. And wow, you guys, this is great. Seeing Maryland Heights full in numbers, that's exciting to me. Very exciting to me. Hey, I grew up in a house that loved Westerns. Anybody else? Yeah, there it is. I knew I'd get some of you old timers because these young people, they are deprived of a good Western. The best they have is some Kevin Costner wannabe thing. Or a couple of different ones, I think. Anyway, I loved it. In fact, if you go to my mom's house today, there is a wall full of Louis L'Amour. The finest, best books you can, yeah, I mean, they're in the fancy type bindings and the whole, I mean, they are nice. I can't wait to get them one day to sell them. I mean, I love my mom. Sorry. Westerns. You know, inevitably, though, in those Westerns, there is a poker scene. And I know, we're at church. We shouldn't be talking about this. But there's a part in every single one of them where they're about to sit down. They're going to sit down and play cards. And there's the good guy, and there's the bad guy. And it comes to that final moment. Got the right cards, and he pushes all the chips in. He says, I'm all in. Puts it all in. Now, if you saw the more recent version of Maverick, that one he left the card laying there until the last second. Then he's going to flip it over, and it's the one he needs, right? It's always that way. And the good guy always wins. He has the right cards necessary to win. But I like this moment of just pushing all the chips in. Because I think for me, if I think about my Christian life, switching gears a little bit, I don't know that I'm completely all in. I don't know if there's ever a point when I said, you know what, here it is, I'm all in. Instead, I like to just put a few chips in at a time. And really, if you think about Christianity today, this is kind of what we're dealing with. Because who is a Christian? Well, you go through some initial portions, but then after that, we want you to be here with us, with the family. Okay, so we come into church on a Sunday morning, we get here for class, and we get here for worship. We're really good Christians, we did both. Guess what? You just gave God 1%. You gave God 1% with your 2 hours. So you did even better, because see, when I was growing up, we did the Sunday morning, Bible class, and church, worship, and then you did Sunday night, and you did Wednesday night. I was super Christian. 2%. I gave God 2% of me. And that's what it meant to be a Christian. Well done. Bravo. Really? Is that what we're saying? That's all in? I give God 2% of my time and my effort, and I'm a good Christian. And really, this has come along in the last couple years where I'm like, you know what? I am really not good enough. This isn't enough. This is not what I was called to. So if you would allow me this morning, I'm going to kind of take a little Stephen moment. Do you remember when Stephen's before the Sanhedrin, and he kind of walks you through their history? I want to do that with you. Because as I read Scripture, I find some people who have decided they're going to be all in. So why don't you start with me as we deal with Noah? Think about that guy for a minute. Here's a guy just doing his normal life, and God speaks to him and says, I need you to build an ark. I need you to build an ark. Is that better? Imagine if you were Noah, you'd probably be like, what's an ark? It's a big ship. And we don't know. I mean, there's not a lot of information in Noah's story. He might have been like, what's a ship? It's like, a big boat. What's a boat? I mean, this could go on for a while. And he offers all this big, extravagant detail about how this thing is supposed to be built and what Noah is going to be in store for. But, man, what a risk. Because we do read that the rain situation was a little bit weird. That the waters actually were coming from the ground up. There wasn't actual rain. He said he's going to make it rain. What's rain? You see where this is going? A constant place of, I don't get it, Lord. But the surprising thing is, Noah said, and I need your help here, I'm all in. All right, let's practice. Come on. Noah said, I'm all in. Very good. We're going to keep this going. So there's Noah. We continue on a little bit. Let's deal with Abraham. Hey, Abraham, Abram at the time, I need you to move to a whole new land. What land? I'll show you. Okay, so we're going to wander some random land out there. This is where you want me to go. Okay, yeah, sure. Hey, and you know what he said? Oh, yeah, and then he gets there, and then God says, hey, now what I need you to do is take your son on the top of a mountain, and I need you to sacrifice him to me. I mean, come on, really? I know there are times in our kids' lives when maybe we don't love them as much as, no, we always loved our kids all the same, even through those teen years. Amazing. He goes up on the top of the mountain with his son, and his son says, hey, where's the sacrifice? I'm not telling you, kid. Just wait till we get there. I think that was the very first example of, are we there yet? Yeah. Crazy thing is, Abraham said, wow. So they're about to enter into the promised land, and they go and find this woman's home to hide 2 spies from Israel. They're in the town of Jericho. And the lady says, hey, come in here. I'll hide you. She covers them, hides them from the officials in her town. This lady named Rahab. Not only that, I'm going to help you escape. Hey, when you escape, I've heard about your God. He's pretty amazing. When you come back, save me and my family. She lives in a walled city. She is safe. She is not their nationality. She risked it all that these 2 would get back home, back to their people. Those people would come, take over the city, and save her. That's a lot of risk. But you know what she said? Now, we know Rahab ends up in Matthew in a genealogy, right? Do you ever think about what that means? What that means is there's an Israelite man who said, you know what, I would really like to marry a prostitute. That's what it says. I know your shady past, I'm still going to marry you. That's crazy to me. And I don't think we think about that as we read that genealogy because, let's be honest, it's boring. So not only did Rahab say, I'm all in, but her husband said, that's amazing. Let's keep going. So they get into the promised land and things are going good. They're conquering people after people after people, going in all, spreading out in areas, except there's this one area that's really hard to conquer. And Caleb says, oh yeah, that's for me. You see, I was here when I was 40 years old. I came in and I spied out this land and I checked it out. And you know what? God promised me that land up there, the mountains. And you know what's in the mountains? The giants. But you know what? Now I am 85 years old and I feel just as young as I did in my 40s. Anybody else feel like that? I'm sorry, I'm 50. I don't feel 40. I'm 85. Give me the mountains. Give me that land. Give me the giants. Because that's beautiful. So things are not great in Bethlehem, and so Naomi has to leave and go to Moab. And she takes her sons and her husband along with her, and they go to Moab, and her sons marry wonderful wives. Only problem is those sons died, as did her husband. So she has to go back home, and this young lady named Ruth says, Naomi, I'll stay with you. And she says, no, go back to your people, where you're safe, where you're protected. I have nothing to go back to. We really don't know if she had a home. We know she didn't have any food. She was going back to poverty, complete poverty. And Ruth says, I'm going with you. And so she goes with her over to the promised land and says, you know what? Know what else I'm going to do for you? I'm going to go work in the fields. You know what working in the fields means? Well, it means a lot of bad possibilities. All the bad things you can imagine in your mind could possibly happen there. And I think we don't realize that. We want to ignore those elements of the Bible, but it's true. She goes and works in the fields over and over and over again, bringing back food for her mother-in-law. Wait, mother-in-law? Really? How many of you love your mother-in-law? Come on, good answer. Good job. Hopefully they're in the room and they saw that. Trying to help. And then she says, what else do you need from me? She says, I'd love for you to find a great husband, someone to care for you. Think through this process for a minute. She says, okay, I'm going to marry this man. I'm going to go in here and do this weird act where there's a whole threshing floor and uncover his feet. And that's just bizarre. But she does it anyway. And she has a child. And here's the part I want you to read into Scripture because it gets a little weird here. She gives the child to Naomi. Do you realize what that means? That is Naomi's child. That is Naomi's child. Got to keep the land in the family, the inheritance in the family. That is Naomi's child. I've often wondered about this when we read the genealogy and we come across that son from Ruth. Is that the first or the second one? Think on that one. Enjoy it later. But you know what she said? All in. Completely and totally. Boy, you know what? You got to live in great. Life is wonderful. You have lots of wealth. You have a great family. And God gets some deal with the devil and he takes it all away. Well, the devil did, let's be honest. Not only that, we're going to take your family away, your home away. We're going to give you sores and we're going to make you hurt and in pain. And your friends are not going to be any help. And your wife is not either. She's the worst of the worst. Curse God and die already. Let's move on. Man, don't marry that woman. He says, no, all I want is a conversation with God. And it doesn't matter if I'm rich and it doesn't matter if I'm poor because all in. Let's try Daniel. You know what? Here's what we need you to do. We need you to bow down to some statues. That's that whole Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, which I think is my next one. But Daniel had his own issues. He was praying constantly. And some tricksters come to the king and say, hey, if people are not bowing down and praying to you, you should kill them. Send them into the lions. King's like, yeah, that sounds great. The odd thing in this story is Daniel and the king were friends. Really good friends. They liked each other. So much so that when Daniel had to go into the lion's den, the king shows up to see if he's all right. Kings don't do that. Come on. Kings are like, yeah, off with your head. Wait, that was queens, wasn't it? Anyway. French Revolution. Whew. All right. He actually liked Daniel. And the amazing thing about it was when Daniel heard the edict about what he should and should not do, you know the very next line? He went to his house and bowed down and prayed. Yeah, that's showing it. He said, it doesn't matter. I don't care what the laws of this land say. I'm all in. So let's take Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. And if you don't know who those are, shame on you. I do not know why the Babylonian names are the ones that ended up in the Bible. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Come on. Keep it Jewish. It's where it belongs. Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. Beautiful. Yeah, bow down to the statue. No, we're good. You're going to go into a fiery furnace. All right, whatever you got, throw it at us. That's faith. That's complete faith. They were crazy for doing this. But you know what they said? Completely and totally, even if that means going into a fire. Imagine those 12 disciples. You're fishing one day and some guy comes along and says, come follow me. Yeah, sure, that sounds good. I'm going to ditch my livelihood. I'm going to ditch my family. I'm going to wander around this wilderness with you. Yeah, good times. And they all jumped up and went. You want another good read? Go find out what happened to the disciples after Jesus. How do they each die? It's gruesome. It's awful. It's like the worst of the worst of the worst. Because there was 12 men that said, completely and totally all in. Let's try Paul, for example. I don't know about you, but prison kind of scares me. It just does not sound like someplace I want to be. But you know what? Today's prison's nowhere close to the one that Paul had to deal with. I mean, these have TVs and health and nice, they're going to take care of you, make sure you're not hurting. Paul's time? Oh, no, we don't care. We'll probably whip you before we throw you in there. Then once you're in there, somebody else in there is probably coughing and sneezing and sick, going to give it to you, probably have some illness of some sort that they're going to give it to you. It's not going to be pretty. And every time Paul ends up in prison, you see like some weird things, like he spends most of the time praying. He's singing in prison. And we're not talking like the movies where they're on the chain gang and like, no. He's praising the Lord in the prison. The Jew among Jews, the royalty among the Hebrew people, and he said, Lord, all in. I like this one because we've got a lot of room on this one. Let's try this Ethiopian eunuch. He's praying, he is actually converted to Judaism, first of all, because he was in Jerusalem for the festivals. I don't know if we realize that. He's sitting in his chariot and he's reading. Now, at that time, you didn't read scripture quietly. You read it aloud. No matter where you were, alone, if you were in a group, you read it aloud. He's in his chariot reading aloud, and Philip comes across him. And we all know this story. We go along and he says, hey, I'm reading this, but I don't understand. And Philip explains it to him and he says, hey, here's water. What keeps me from being baptized, right? And that's where we stop. I don't stop there because I really want to know some more about this. This Ethiopian eunuch, it's believed, went home. He came from the festivals. He's going home. Makes sense. He had a chariot. Yeah. So he cruises on home. Here's the part that's interesting. If you read Irenaeus, none of you would. Why would you read Irenaeus? He's boring. Anyway, early church father. Here's what he had to say about the Ethiopian eunuch. It is very likely this Ethiopian eunuch is the very first evangelist to Africa. Because by 400 AD, that area had already become Christian. Who does it? This guy does it. That to me is cool. And it wasn't just some nice little story in Scripture. No. There's a continuation to this story, and that's where it went. Because the Ethiopian eunuch said, anybody know who this is? You do. Whew, she looks rough. This right here is Fanny Crosby. Now, does that help? You guys know Fanny? Yeah, we like Fanny Crosby. What do we know about her? She's a songwriter, right? Most of the songs you sing on a Sunday morning, although I think we get one this morning. Born in Brewster, New York, blinded as an infant due to a doctor's error. She had excellent memory. She could recite the first 4 books of the Old Testament. Anybody else got that one down? Yeah, me neither. Oh yeah, go ahead and memorize the Gospels while you're at it. Memorized. You were close. Man, you were quoting like crazy this morning in class. Good job. 3 verses. Hey, it's a start. Keep it up, Fanny. Over 8,000 hymns and gospel songs over 51 years she wrote. She is known as the queen of the gospel songwriters. Also authored 4 books of poetry and 2 autobiographies. Blind. Let's try Joni Tada. Born in 1949, was only 17 when a diving accident left her quadriplegic. She sank into deep depression, struggled with thoughts of suicide, and began to doubt God. But God was not done with her, lifted her out of her despair to the point where she decided she was going to write her life story in 1976. In 97, Joni established Joni and Friends. Christia, you'll like this one. It is an organization that is dedicated to accelerating Christian ministry in the disability community and has served hundreds of thousands of people. She's written more than 40 books on the subjects of disability and Christianity, the new realm of the church today. All the different, when we say disability, and I know that's probably even now a negative word, but all the different possibilities we deal with there, from physical to things like autism, or ADHD. Some of the times you just put some guy up here with ADD and let him wander around the stage. I like this next one. Antoinette Tuff. She's depressed and hurting. She had just gone through a divorce. Her husband of 33 years had recently left her, and she was struggling as a single mom. She showed up at work at Ronald E. McNair School in Atlanta. Unfortunately, on that day, a guy by the name of Michael Hill barged into the school at 1 o'clock, coming to kill. First person he meets is Antoinette. As Hill held her hostage, Tuff talked compassionately to him and realized he was bipolar and had stopped taking his medicine. Antoinette finally convinced Michael to let the police come in and take him to the hospital, and he surrendered peacefully. Tuff later told CNN, God has a way of showing you what's really in you. Because Antoinette said, one more. What does it look like when a church decides that they're all in? Hands of Compassion, right here. You can see on the little sign there. provide soft beds and warm hugs to thousands of Mayo patients and their loved ones. It grew out of Rochester Church of Christ members opening their bedrooms and basements to out-of-state visitors. Philip Quayle said this: members were taking random strangers into their houses just because they happened to be sick and going to the Mayo Clinic. A whole group of people, a whole church that said, I see a need, I'm going to fill a need. Everybody just opening their homes to let random people stay in there. You all up for that? Whew, that one's a little tough. Our home is kind of our sacred place. It's our safe place. We keep everybody out. These guys said, no, come on in. Hospitality is important. Curious, what does it look like when Maryland Heights, as a group, all decide we're all in? You might have to find the ministry. I'm sure there's plenty around. Find the thing that it is. What could you as a group do? As you're pondering that, because that is a bigger question, I want you to think this morning about yourself as an individual. Are you a 2% Christian? Maybe even 3% Christian? And what would it look like if you just said, Lord, let's go ahead and stand and sing.